Hey, welcome back to Slick Talk. So before we jump into it, I just want to remind you to get yourself over to that subscribe button, hit subscribe, and also ring the bell icon so you can get notifications when I post new videos. There's been a lot of Cuomo worship over the last year that doesn't make any sense at all. Cuomo rose to be America's favorite governor last year. I know y'all remember New York was sort of the first giant epicenter. So for a while when COVID first hit and the shutdowns were initially happening in March 2020, it was really like Cuomo and Trump on our screens every day. Cuomo would do his press conferences, Trump would do his press conferences. And so we got to see this sort of side by side, and it was striking. Okay, the contrast was striking between the two. Cuomo was coherent. He was using facts and charts and data in his press conferences. He was deferring to experts, and it seemed like he was elevating experts, right? We'll come back to that later. And Donald Trump was, for a while he was doing that. For a while he was really competent up there. But he very quickly reverted to the Donald Trump that we all know and love. I think this is around the time where we got the bleach comments. He used to attack all his sort of political rivals, attack Dr. Fauci, attack everyone from the podium. He just, was making a real mess out of those press conferences to the point where he actually had to stop them because people were calculating that Donald Trump's COVID response was hurting him. Him being on TV every day acting like a fool was hurting him. Whereas for Cuomo, people just wanted more. People would almost start to tune out Donald to watch Cuomo because he seemed to be competently leading the charge on the issue of COVID. It was a real contrast. The contrast was real. And the Cuomo love fest that came about after that was even real. I think this is around the time where Daddy Cuomo was born. Hashtag Daddy Cuomo. Y'all know what I'm talking about. At this time, people were telling Biden to stay in his basement and let Cuomo be the one that runs against Trump. We got all the weird articles about how hot and attractive Cuomo was, which is if that's what you into. I get it with the whole, tough guy bravado thing that he does, but ill. Anyway, we got a lot of that weird shit. And then also we learned a lot about his daughter having a boyfriend, because he talked about it all the time at his press conferences. Why did he do that? No one knows. But anyway, the Cuomo love fest was really, really real. Honestly, for me, it was really weird to see. I really can't stand when people put any politician on this pedestal or starts to treat them like a celebrity or royalty or anything like that. Because number one, it's a recipe for disappointment. It's guaranteed that public image that you're receiving is pretty far off from what the reality is. I don't care who you're talking about. Pick anyone. AOC, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, right? Even some of the dead ones. We could talk about Ronald Reagan and FDR. All of these people, the legend, right, is usually more legendary than the actual story. The legend about them is always way more appealing, way more attractive, and that's on purpose, right? And anyone that's involved in public relations knows what I'm talking about. It's not a good or bad thing. It's just you got to understand when you're getting a perfectly crafted public image. Like me, ain't no public relations, okay? I'm just out here talking, giving you guys my real self, my authentic self. You're not getting that from a politician. It's just, that would be crazy for a politician to go out and do that actually, because there's, so many PR minefields out there. But my point is, don't treat any politician like some kind of celebrity, some kind of hero, some kind of larger than life figure, because that just doesn't make any sense. And that's really not what they're there for in the first place. But anyway, the peak of Daddy Cuomo Fever was probably when he was having all of those weird, like goofy back and forths with his brother on CNN, right? I know everybody loved it. Everyone was watching that and eating it up. Even I thought it was cute. And you know, I just love some hard-hitting, thorough, deep journalism. So I ate it up.
Thank you for coming back to the show. Mom told me I had to. Governor Andrew Cuomo, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you.
I love you. I'm proud of what you're doing. I know you're working hard for your state, but no matter how hard you're working, there's always time to call Mom. She wants to hear from you, just so you know.
Yeah, I called Mom. Just before I came on the show.
It's not what
By
she
the
said.
way, she said I was her favorite.
She never said
Good news is she said you were her second favorite son.
It was getting real. He won an Emmy. I didn't even know you could win Emmys for press conferences. Let's not forget about the most egregious thing he did during this era, in my opinion, which is released a book about how great of a leader he was during COVID, which look, I get it. It's your time. Everyone's loving you right now. And New York was really in a terrible place. And when he released that book, New York was in a much better place, probably doing better than a lot of other states in comparison in the nation, right? But how's it going? Right after he dropped that book, the November and December second wave that everyone was predicting was going to happened, and New York got hit incredibly during that time. It just was bad timing. It just was in bad taste. Premature, like when Bush declared mission accomplished in 2003 for the war in Afghanistan, that same war that we're still fighting in 2021, right? 4 presidents later. So it just wasn't smart. But I get it. He had to get his bag, and they were giving him a bag to put this book out. So do you, Cuomo? I think that book was a final straw, though, at least for some people. Since then, his own attorney general came out with a report that Cuomo's administration misreported the number of nursing home deaths by a lot. Like, we're talking about, like, the number in actuality is double the amount that Cuomo's administration initially reported. And why is this a controversy? As Cuomo said, you know, people die in pandemics.
Governor Cuomo defended his administration's actions in late January.
A third of all deaths in this nation are from nursing homes. New York State, we're only about 28% only. But we're below the national average in number of deaths in nursing homes. But who cares? 33, 28, died in a hospital, died in a nursing home. They died.
Well, it's a controversy because he is the one who ordered that, and back early in the pandemic, that nursing homes can't discriminate against residents who they knew were COVID positive. So nursing homes took in a lot of residents that they knew had COVID, and that undoubtedly contributed to the spread there. You know, since that order was heavily criticized at the time that he made it, including by Donald Trump, which is like, everybody knows Donald was incompetent as hell in dealing with COVID. But why does he have anything legitimate to say against you? Like, why? Why does he have anything that could stand on any legs? As abysmal as his performance on COVID has been. But anyway, I'm not gonna lie, Donald Trump has been calling out this nursing home shit since the beginning of time. But anyway, since that order was being very, highly criticized at the time within New York, outside of New York, he wound up rescinding it after a few weeks, but the damage was already done. To save his own ass, after everyone started investigating nursing home deaths in New York State, Cuomo, in order to sort of cover himself, I guess and this has been admitted by them, they underreported the amount of those deaths.
For Governor Cuomo's top aide, Melissa DeRosa, privately apologized to Democratic legislators for keeping information from them. DeRosa accused President Trump of playing political football, having directed the Department of Justice to do an investigation into us. And basically we froze because then we were in a position where we weren't sure if what we start saying was going to be used against us, while we weren't sure if there was going to be an investigation.
Yeah. Blaming the Trump administration for the reason why you lied to the New York State Democratic Assembly, right? Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And let me just say this about this nursing home scandal. I fully recognize that, because I was here in New York, I fully recognize what it's like to be the first place where COVID really took off, ran rampant in the United States. And be that national model for, what this COVID pandemic could look like across the nation. It's understandable to make bad policy decisions when you're making policy decisions on the fly, as something like a once in a fucking century pandemic requires. We get that, we understand, but it's the lying, it's the bullying, right? It's the blaming other people. I blame Donald Trump. That's why I had to lie. I blame Democrats for being too pushy on me at a time when Donald Trump was pushing on me. I blame nursing home staff, not the nursing home owners who actually own the facilities and set the policy, but I blame nursing home staff for coming into work with COVID and giving it to the people that they're caring for. I mean, it's just a fucking mess. And this is quintessential Cuomo. This is the Andrew Cuomo that I've always known. I really hope that Biden would pick him for something in his administration, because I think that this man has such a massive ego that he's gonna run for a third term of New York governor. He's definitely gonna run. And New York doesn't have term limits on governors. So we're stuck with Cuomo's ass until another opportunity presents itself for him, because that man is young and that man is, he's a political creature. He really is. He really is. I think progressives have been shouting the alarm about Cuomo for so long, and everyone has just sort of been not being able to see it because he's a strong Democrat, and we don't have a lot of tough talking strong Democrats. So I could see why Cuomo has particular appeal. It's false and it's fake and it doesn't work for New York. But listen, I'm sure this won't be a big deal for too long. Sadly, if this was another politician that was caught up in this, I think it would have more weight and more bite. But because it's Cuomo, a beloved figure, because it's Cuomo who has a vice grip on New York politics, and I don't know if people know this about New York, but New York is very much like a machine politics state, especially being so deeply blue as it's been for, so long. The governor has a lot of sway and control, and it's a real insider's game. It is, and he has put himself very high at the top of that. His father is also a former New York governor, legendary figure now. And so I think the Cuomo name holds weight in New York, and I don't think that this is going to be too much of a stain against him for too long. And plus, let's face it, everyone's political fucking memory is like goldfish. We're going to be on to the next thing. The only piece of hope there is that there's no Donald Trump sucking up all the political oxygen for everything. And so I know the media is hungry for a real political scandal because, come on, ratings. So maybe because of that, they'll spend a little bit more time with this. But I think this is going to roll off of him, because that's how it is when you're on top, when people love you. When you got that larger-than-life figure, that larger-than-life status as a politician. I'm cool with Barack Obama. Barack Obama was a king at droning the fuck out of people. He used drones against an American citizen. He was not the best in terms of like starting new military conflicts, although they were much smaller than the ones Bush did. He did a handful of them, and no one criticized him for that because it's Obama, it's Barack. You know, I think there's a similar thing going on with Cuomo. So I'm not, holding my breath for him to have any real accountability for this, but I do want to see this man come out and apologize because he's been in the media looking and sounding like a damn fool, continuing to blame everyone except him, except his own administration. And I just think it's wrong, and we should just expect more from our goddamn elected officials. But while he's being scrutinized a little bit more than usual right now, let me just add on top of that. This man got elected as a Democrat, and then within months of him being in office, formed in a caucus called the IDC, right? I think it stands for Independent Democrat Caucus. And what this caucus did in the state Senate, they caucused with the Republicans, giving the Republicans control of the New York State Senate, even though they haven't had a majority in the Senate in decades, right? The point is, for most of Cuomo's time as governor of New York, he propped up Republicans. He gave Republicans control of the New York State Senate, even though that went against all of the Democrats that voted for him and put him in office. And it was all completely just a self-serving thing. Yeah, he empowered Republicans, and he used the Republican Senate to help him block a lot of policy changes that were coming out of New York City. And that was one of the biggest thorns in the side of Bill de Blasio in trying to do things like reforms to the New York City public education system. And I don't know, expanding pre-K, raising taxes, right? He used that Republican Senate to help him sort of be more of a bully in New York City. He's been openly fighting with de Blasio, New York City's mayor, for years. Look at this clip of de Blasio talking about it from, 5-6 years ago.
I certainly don't believe the Assembly had a real working partner in the governor or the Senate in terms of getting things done for the people of this city and in many cases the people of the state. And what I believe happened here is the governor worked with the Senate in some cases to inhibit the work of the Assembly, to inhibit the agenda that New York City put forward. But what I found was he engaged in his own sense of strategies, his own political machinations. And what we've often seen is if someone disagrees with him openly, some kind of revenge or vendetta follows. And I think too many people in this state have gotten used to that pattern and thrown a bit by it. But I think more and more of us are saying we're just not going to be party to that anymore.
And Cuomo is not above a petty response. So look at his response to this.
But next year we can come back, and if he does a good job, then we can say he should have more control.
Cuomo claims he didn't want to publicly air his personal feelings towards the mayor.
I try to bite my tongue once in a while on personal feelings. Not that I've ever had any personal feelings about any of you or any of your stories. I want you to know.
Are you biting your tongue about Mayor de Blasio?
I'm biting my tongue once. One of your stories, by the way. I bit my tongue so hard I bled for a week. That's how hard I bit my tongue.
This man has been openly fighting with de Blasio, New York City's mayor, for years. For years. In fact, this study's showing that the infighting between Cuomo and de Blasio in March 2020 about shutting the city down directly contributed to higher deaths, more deaths than necessary due to COVID. And when I talk to people about this, everyone's always like, oh, these two men and they're big. It's not these two men. Cuomo didn't have to always be such a thorn in the side about everything, but that is part of his political nature. You would think a Democrat supports universal pre-K. You would think a Democrat wants to put money toward public transportation in New York City. Everything that could have been a fight between Cuomo and de Blasio, it was a fight. And I'm not saying that de Blasio has done everything great and he's the greatest and all his... This is not like a pro de Blasio piece, but a lot of the things that Cuomo fought with de Blasio about, De Blasio was on the right side. De Blasio was trying to make reforms to the public school system. De Blasio was trying to get more funding overall put towards the New York City transit system from the state, while also trying not to fund it in the city. So there's that problem as well. But the point is, I think de Blasio was more on the right side of a lot of issues. Where's the weed, Cuomo? Where's that? Okay. We're supposed to have recreational. We're supposed to have recreational use. They've been talking about it for years. They still haven't done it. New Jersey is about to get it before us. You're going to let New Jersey get recreational marijuana before New York? That's crazy. Okay, that's crazy. I mean, I know that was mean to Jersey, but y'all got to understand, us New Yorkers, we always got smoke for New Jersey. So the fact that he's even allowing New Jersey to get it first is more egregious. Look, I just want everybody to get real about Cuomo. That's all. That's what I'm doing this for. Okay. Let me know what you think. Did I cover it? Did I miss anything? Am I being too mean to Cuomo? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.